Here's the MCU's Phase 4 of the MCU with the movies and shows ranking. First off, with the movies. In last place is Eternals. Now, I respect that the MCU was taking a risk here, but it just really doesn't pay it off with just bad character development and bad storytelling. Next plays Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness. Now, it left me so disappointed because there wasn't enough madness, there wasn't enough cameos in there, and it just left me so heartbroken and as I walked out of the theater. Next up, Thor: Love and Thunder. Now, to be clear, it was not as good as Ragnarok, and it wasn't that good. It was going to be good as Ragnarok, but there were just too many jokes thrown in there and just so much lameness in there while wasting the villain. Which Christian Bale, I respect Christian Bale as a villain. Natalie Portman's coming back, but otherwise, not quite of a film as well as Ragnarok. Next up, Black Widow. Now, I know this seems like a movie that came out years too late after the title character had died, but in other ways, it wasn't such an enjoyable film. The connection between Scarlett Johansson and Florence Pugh is great. And even David Harbour and Florence Pugh were also fun to watch. Now, Taskmaster wasn't even that great of a villain, and the third act goes full-blown video game. Well, not the best, but at least we got to know Natasha's origins now, and that's what I kind of get respect for this. We obviously wish it could have came out years later, but still a good time. Next up, Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings. Probably a top 15 MCU, and I like the martial arts, and I like the fighting, and a huge breakout for Simu Liu. But the villain thing kind of confused me a little bit, but good, but not quite that. Next up, Black Panther: Wakanda Forever. Now, before this movie was even made, the lead actor Chadwick Boseman tragically died in the midst of a global pandemic. But I thought they just captured the right emotions honoring Chadwick Boseman. But in first place, it has to go to Spider-Man: No Way Home. No other words. Great, awesome villains. Good to see Andrew Garfield and Tobey Maguire back. Well, this movie will bring out the man tears. And next up, the shows. In last place is none other than She-Hulk. Bad writing, bad CGI, and they just had no plan. Next up, What If? Now, I really didn't get into it that all. And I don't think there were some things that were great, but it never really got me really interested. Next up, Miss Marvel. Now, yeah, there were some things that I liked in like a couple episodes until things got a little frustrated toward the end. But whatever, it's still enjoyable. But I just think that at the end of the day, I think that things that Miss Marvel herself was doing something right all along, and I respect it. But now there's the Marvels just coming out, which I do have some expectations for it, but I sure hope so. So, Falcon and the Winter Soldier. Now, there were some things that were so dark in the MC about this show, but the actions were great, and I think there were some things in the final episode that made it good. But the frustrating part was the Captain America who promised would be Captain America and Hoskins, but that's what's kind of frustrating for me. But it's fun. It's still fun, but not quite the best show. Next up, WandaVision. Now, there are some moments that add like sitcoms to the show, and going craziness and overblown with, you know, different types of show that they do every single episode, especially like the big twisted point about Agatha, that she was doing this all along. And then it leads up to the final episode, which has Scarlet Witch going insane. Next up, Hawkeye. The chemistry between Jeremy Renner and Haley Steinfeld. Okay, good. And I do respect the theme about the show. And especially the actions are great, more than ever. And yeah, I'd say so, yeah. Next up, Moon Knight. Now, I really enjoy this. Like, I expected that it kind of felt like an Indiana Jones, like, MCU to me. Especially from Oscar Isaac, who did extremely good. And, well, also, like, Ethan Hawke as a villain, also good. And so this is why I'm going to put this on my list, because I just thoroughly enjoyed this one, and I think it was so good. But remind me a little bit of Indiana Jones, a little bit. But in first place goes to Loki. Seeing Loki in, like, the TVA, okay, that's quite amazing. And I was wondering, like, what they were going for when Loki, like, had the blue cube and then, like, went out of, like, that way. Like, into the TVA, like, that's kind of cool. And especially Owen Wilson. That's great. It's really cool. Until, like, the final episode of the season, which had me questioning what will happen next. Well, that's all for now. Tell me what you think in the comments below about the MCU Phase 4. Well, let me tell you my opinion. Phase 4 was not that all great. But there were some projects that were good in the MCU, but let's just hope that Phase 5 is better, because I hope we can. But we also have a Phase 6, in which there's only been 3 projects announced for Phase 6, but hopefully there could be more projects that could be better than this Phase 4.